Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started together for Sharon.com in her memory. Today, I have an incredible guest. This time, we have an author, somebody who I again consider family. I do say that a lot, but it's true because we've spoken a lot, but I follow him on some incredible social media and really his journey. He also was really gracious enough to interview with me almost a year ago, and I'm really just grateful for your time, Benjamin, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for this platform as well.
No, I appreciate it. I think what you do, your story, and I love the author part because I joined you just recently, but your books are so scientifically incredible, and the references and things that you also work with other doctors impresses me as a researcher and a PhD. I'm working on now a new book on policing and Parkinson's, and it has about 200 references, but some of the medical areas that you kind of touch on still just, I think are just so academically important. So thanks again. Maybe we could start.
200,
Yeah.
200 is pretty impressive.
Oh no, I think some of yours have more than that. But maybe we could just start at telling us a little bit about yourself and just for the listeners, what brought you into the world of Parkinson's awareness.
Sure. So about 11 years ago, I was living and working in China at the time. I actually had a really good career back then. I was all set up to retire by the time I was 40. I just turned
Oh,
40 last month.
happy birthday.
Um, Thank you. But unfortunately, life took a turn for the worse for me. I got diagnosed on a trip back home from China. I was 29 years old, like I said, and that was not an easy thing to take in. But eventually, I was able to kind of make my way in this new world of Parkinson's advocacy. It took a long time, though. It took a lot. I was knocking on doors constantly trying to go and talk to the greatest researchers that I could find, and really spending a lot of my own money that I had built up in time over my time in China, just making my way in this Parkinson's field. I've now gotten myself to the point, though, where I get regularly invited to go and speak at some of the big conferences and some of the big talks. So I've made some headways in this field in terms of my own advocacy work. Also, about 3.5 years ago, almost, I got this new kind of adaptive deep brain stimulator implanted in me, which is how I'm able to live my life now. Prior to this installation, I was on crazy amounts of Cinemet, which, as I'm sure you know, creates those on-off fluctuations the patients experience. I'm now down to nothing. I'm now not on any Cinemet at all, thanks to this new form of DVS that I have ticking away inside of my brain. Yeah, happy to answer any questions about any of the above.
No, I think that's amazing. It is interesting how, everyone's different. I've heard some amazing stories, but then I've heard some tougher ones. I personally just unfortunately didn't work out for me with 4 back surgeries, and I've been looking at that spinal cord stimulator that I'm kind of worried, and I hear the same type of thing. I'm not sure if it's for everyone. So maybe we can talk after about that stuff for anyone listening, but these are not easy decisions. What made you decide to try the newer DBS, and obviously you don't regret it. What do you recommend or not recommend, but say to everyone out there listening who is kind of debating it too?
Most important thing that anybody can have, though, is a good relationship with their neurologist and their neurosurgeon.
Mm.
That's something that I was very fortunate to actually build up over time here in Toronto. I got to know my neurologist very early on over the course of my disease here. He's been a lifesaver for me. His name is Alfonso Fasano, for anybody who might be interested. However, he's one of a kind, really, in a lot of different ways. I wish I could replicate him and give him to every patient in the world who needs. I wish every patient had this kind of relationship that I have with my neurological team here in Toronto. Unfortunately, though, that's not the case. I know a lot of patients who suffer tremendously just simply because they don't have the right team looking after them. It's something that a lot of patients spend a lot of time and a lot of resources trying to find for themselves. I was very lucky in some ways that I live here in Toronto and I have access to some of the great minds that live here at the University Hospital Network here in Toronto. But I wish more than anything else, more patients would take it upon themselves early on in their journeys to develop the kind of relationships that might help them later on. I didn't know exactly what I would need at the time, but I did have some understanding of what DVS was and that this was probably going to be part of my future. So very early on in my journey, I sought to find Dr. Frazano because I knew that he was a world expert in DVS. He was also very young, up and coming. He's young, so similar to me. His age is almost the same as mine. And so I knew that he'd be there for me, that he'd be the kind of person that I could trust implicitly with all of the decisions that would be needed along the way. Because that having that trust with your doctors and having them trust you as well is so vitally important, making sure that you have good care along the way. Without that kind of back and forth trust that I have with him and he has with me, I don't think I'd still be here, but I would not be doing as well as I am right now. That is 100% for sure. So my number one piece of advice to any patient who might be out there thinking about getting DBS is do what you can to develop that relationship immediately, as soon as possible. Whether it be deep brain stimulation or even spinal cord stimulation as well, from what I hear. Having the right surgical team, having the right care before and after your surgery is going to be vital to having the best outcome possible. So yeah, that's my basic advice as
I
far as
appreciate it.
those things go.
What was your background in education? Because it's not always for everyone to do a lot of research, but also be able to write books with other professionals in the medical field. So that's something that I think is unique. But what in not just your own journey, but what do you love, I guess, about research and writing? And while you respond and actually start sharing the screen and a little bit more too about you.
Yeah, sure. So before I had no background in biology or healthcare. The last biology class I took was in grade 10, I think, or grade 11 maybe. So I had no understanding of what these terms all meant. But I did have one thing that was actually very beneficial for me. I do have a pretty good aptitude for languages. I
Mm.
found that neuroscience or neurology is just another language that you have to learn. It's all about matching the right word to the right context.
Right.
If you're able to do that with a language, you can do that also with neurology. Not everybody has that kind of gift, but something that that I knew I had very early on. That's just allowed me to be able to like get up to speed pretty quickly in this neuroscience. So now I can read, pretty dense articles about neuroscience and neurology and understand for the most part what's going on. I can't understand everything, but I can understand the most vital part pretty quickly. But my own like education background is in philosophy, which
Right.
also is helpful, I feel, because I mean, it's helped me to figure out how to live my life, how to live a good life with a disease like Parkinson's. Because there are times still where I struggle. There are times still where I realize that I'm not living that well. But thanks to this philosophical underpinning that kind of guides my whole philosophy on life, I've been able to actually cultivate a better mindset around this disease. And that's really given me the blessing that I've understood very like deeply that not everything in life is promised to every person who lives in life. You can't always look at your neighbors and think about what they have and think about what your friends even grew up with you have today. And anybody who's constantly comparing themselves to other people, that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So that philosophical underpinning that allowed me to actually break free from that trap that I think a lot of us have fallen under, where we're constantly comparing ourselves to our neighbors or our friends that we grew up with. I feel like that's a clutch that holds us back in so many ways. So if you can cultivate some kind of mindset to help yourself free yourself from those kinds of burdens, and I think you'll be a lot happier at the end of the day.
Well, like I said earlier, you inspire me. Even while you're talking, I'm learning, and I really appreciate that. Sometimes people don't realize how much of an impact, a positive one, they make on so many. And I think that you do that on so many. And that's why I was so excited to talk today, because I want the world to also learn what you're doing in your journey. So thank you. And also, everyone, if you go to togetherforsharon.com, click interviews for completely free, you can find more on Benjamin. You can actually see about his books and the Great Doctor. Also, a little bit more about the background that we might not get to today and how to also reach out. I did want to now move a little bit to your website. I hope I'm on the right one, but your book, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the book or past books. And I just wanted also everyone to see you click on it's getting too big, my website, I can't find my own stuff, but if you click media and then books, it'll actually take you to authors in the area of Parkinson's awareness. And one I love again is Benjamin's. If you click right under his book, it boom, I love the technology, you can go right there. Very reasonable. I mean, literally the same price as my journey book, which means great minds take alike. But I love the book. I actually had the opportunity to review a lot of it, and it tells a different journey and a story between the patient and doctor, which I find so important. You know, my mother and our family didn't have, like you mentioned, the best care. We tried 15 of the best doctors in South Florida, but everybody just continued to, you know, say you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it, and gave the usual medicine and kicked the door out and goodbye. And we were kind of felt alone. My mother is a Parkinson's patient and me as a caregiver. And I wish I had known you and so many incredible people today. Because I just realized the other day, and I say it on a few shows, that my mother never even met someone with Parkinson's. Like if she, I just picture right now me FaceTiming you and talking to her, and I think it would have changed her life. Like she would have smiled, she would have been intrigued, and she would have learned so much. I would have bought the book and read it to her. Just a shame, you know, we can't regret things like you mentioned, but there's so many people out there, I think, that will benefit from getting your book and all that you do. So maybe you could kind of touch a little bit on this book, and even if you want to talk about any of the other books.
Sure. So that book is called Reprogramming the Brain. I wrote it with my neurologist here in Toronto. His name is Alfonso Bazzano. Like I just said about him, he's a great guy. And this book is really about the journey that we both took. That like we go back in time and we talk more about our personal histories as well. But it's about our personal stories and how we actually got to where we are in time and in space as well. If you go back to my blog, I'd like you to try and click on the other book that I have there as well. It's called Brain Fables. That I wrote with Alberto Espe, who's a doctor in Cincinnati. I got connected to him through Tony Lang here in Toronto. Tony Lang is a pretty famous neurologist. There's Espe right there in the corner, right there. So Alberto, his name is Alberto Espe. You can put this.
I don't
You,
want to, yeah, I can. I don't want to talk over you.
Important diseases of
you can get a sense of what
working
Alberto's
aging,
like. He's a very passionate
comparing
guy. I
critical
love him to death. I'm actually
at
right in the
biological age.
at the moment. I might be going back to Cincinnati at some point soon to work with him again. You can see I've aged a little bit since that recording, but hopefully I've aged for the better as well. Um, but Alberto's a very passionate guy, a very passionate speaker. If you ever have the chance to hear him speak, I would highly recommend everybody go out and hear him speak because he's very passionate about what he believes in. And what he believes can basically be summed into this, and that is that Parkinson's disease, it's not one disease, it's many different diseases. And that only if we figure out how to actually properly split up these diseases into the proper components, are we ever actually going to make any real headway in this disease area. So that's what this book is really about. It's about how are we it's about laying out the groundwork and laying a path to help us get to the world where we can treat each individual as an individual, where each universe unto ourselves. The complexity of this disease is such that no two people have the same set of symptoms that progress at the same rate at the same time of days as well. And so keep all that in mind as you approach this book. If for anybody who might be going out there and getting this book, I, I still return to this pretty frequently actually to help guide my own thinking around Parkinson's and the brain and neuroscience in general.
Thank you. It's beautiful. Do you have any other books you're working on next, or are you taking a little, like I decided I wasn't going to write ever, and now here's second book was just released, and you're going to be in one of our future books. I think you already know. It's called Voices of Resilience, and it's covering other journeys, just as you already interviewed. And I just think it's not, I learned after 2 years after my mother passed that it's not just about me and my mother anymore. It's about everybody. And I feel we have to be a family in this fight. The more we work together, the more people we can really reach. And I think it just changes the world. So, like I said, the reason we're here now, or even, you know, working together in the future, so I just want the world to not just buy your books, but to know the incredible journey you're going on. And I always say, even my journey through the good, the bad, and the ugly is always positive from like everything. And just knowing you to me means the world to me.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Thank you for all the work that you're doing as well. As far as whether or not I'm going to write any more books in the future, we'll see. Time will tell. I mean, I just came out with this book this past year, Reprogramming the Brain. However, I have been thinking more and more about that first book I wrote, Brain Fables, thinking about a version 2.0 about what that might look like. And I might be going back to Cincinnati, like I just mentioned, soon to start working with Alberto on exactly that. We'll see how far we get down that road. It might not be a book per se, it might be more of a podcast or even just an article in a website somewhere, but we'll see how things turn out, how it all plays out at the end of the day.
I'll be staying tuned and excited for what's to come. I wanted to move a little now towards a little bit more about you. Can you list 3 words that describe who you are? This is where we get into the Barbara Walters and the tough questions. Just kidding. No crying, please.
Um, so one, I'm probably a little bit stubborn. Um, yeah, I have kind of a stubborn streak to me. That's definitely one word I think my mom would use to describe me. I can be a bit of a stubborn kid when I think about something. When I think I know something, I kind of I kind of have blinders sometimes, and I'm very focused on that one thing, and I kind of like push everything else out to the side. So stubborn is one. I like to think I'm pretty creative as well. I like to think that comes across in my writing and my blogging and my social media as well. And I'm probably a bit silly though too. Probably something that might not come across as easily to some people, but I can be pretty silly. And I do like to have fun, and I love to laugh more than anything else. Laughing is really is the best kind of I don't know if it's the best kind of medicine that there is. For me, DBS is still the best medicine that there is. Laughter, maybe a close second after DBS.
No, I appreciate it. And next area is what is one moment or one most memorable moment that stands out most through all of your work with awareness so far that you can share? I always dump everybody on some of these.
Yeah. So, um, there's a lot of things that are coming to mind right now, but one of them in particular is a journey I made back to China because I lived in China for 6 years before getting this diagnosis. But then I went back after my diagnosis. I went back to a clinic actually in China, and I saw a huge lineup of people outside of this clinic door. Outside, there's one famous doctor. His name is Chen Cheng Li. He has a world-renowned clinic over in Shanghai. That's where I used to live as well. And I saw that the amount of people that he had seen in this one clinical session was so great, and he had so little time for each patient as well. It made me feel bad for the patients that were there, but it also kind of made me kind of amazed at how he was able to like quickly assess what each patient needed and quickly be able to give them like some kind of solution to their problems, whether it be like to titrate their medications or assign them to get DBS or something else of the sort. He did it all so rapidly, so quickly, and there's such like a long lineup of patients just waiting for him that it made me think about all the other patients that might be out in the world as well that might be in a similar situation as those patients that were in line there that day. And I remember that there was like there are a couple patients that stood out to me that day even that still I still remember them very fondly, very dearly. I don't know what their names are. I've long since forgotten their names, but their faces will always be kind of etched in my brain. Some of them were like smiling, some of them were laughing, some of them were like were really severely in pain, where their symptoms were so bad that I could just tell that they were like looking to me for help as well. I couldn't really help them at the time, um, but yeah, that whole day, that whole moment is something that I'll never forget.
Thanks. Yeah, often we don't think, in the US or Canada about others around the world. And that's what,
Yeah,
again, I tried to embark on. My last book is to share journeys from people all over the world. There's people in China, there's people in, England, Spain, UK, everywhere still battling this disease. And we need to bring more awareness together for all those individuals too. Next
yeah,
area,
we definitely do. And if I can just add one other
please.
point on that,
Sure.
there's one guy. His name is I met him in Barcelona. His name is escaping me right now. Hopefully it'll come to me soon. His mother had Parkinson's in Uganda as well.
Yeah, that's Mr.
Um,
Hannington. Yeah, he was on the
yeah,
show.
Mr. Hannington. Yes, yes, that's the guy.
Oh,
And she was labeled a witch because she had Parkinson's in a place where Parkinson's was not accepted at all. So it should make us feel kind of somewhat grateful that we live in the places that we live, but also remember that there are people out there that are really suffering, going through terrible situations. So, as you were just saying, we need to do more to ensure that more people have equitable access to the care that they need, so that so that we can bring down suffering in this world. I think that's ultimately why we're all here. Try and limit the amount of suffering that has to take place in the world.
yeah, I love these opportunities to speak with you because he's also a very good friend of mine. We've all become kind of banded together for one same purpose. That's to end this disease and find a cure. And it's just incredible that even though, I lost my best friend and my mother, and I still grieving even for, her birthday will be on September 28th this month. So it's not going to be easy, but getting to know you and all those still battling and caregivers and families really is like kind of a shining light from the darkness. So that's why, again, I'm so grateful for your time today and in the past and in the future. So thank you for that too. And this is a tougher question. This one is really, I love this question because it kind of brings the people behind the scenes out to the forefront, not literally, but who helps you during times of struggle? I was a caregiver, and I was wondering if you could give anyone listening who might be caregiver some tips, but obviously you're kind of the spokesperson who is kind of behind the scenes that we can also thank today.
So I would say my parents are both my caregivers, really. I mean, they're both in their 70s right now, yet they spend so much of their time just making sure that I'm okay as well. I'll forever be grateful for all the work that they've always put into helping me through my daily struggles, making sure that like nowadays I don't need as much help as I used to need because of this DBS. So I'm able to get around, I'm able to do most of the things by myself, but that has not always been true. And I've had to rely on them in the past. I still rely on them for emotional support and for like to for a bunch of different needs as well that I might have. So my mom in particular is one person I'd love to just pay mention to. Her name is Ivona Stecher or Annetta Stecher. She actually works now as a volunteer on the patient advisory board to Toronto Western Hospital. So in some ways she's kind of following my footsteps.
Mhm.
Um, but she's also helping a lot of other patients who might be about to get DBS. So if anybody in the Toronto area or really anywhere around the world is thinking about getting DBS and they might have a caregiver or a parent that might be about to embark on that that yeah, that might be about to embark on that journey with them, then my mom is somebody who she's a great resource, she's a great person to talk to. She's a social worker before in her life. She used to help children in embattled homes like escape bad situations that they were in. Um, so she's a great person to talk to. She's a great mentor for me and for patients all around the world. So yeah, my mom, I
Well,
guess, would be one person I'd love to shine a bigger spotlight on if I could.
we send our love to her and your whole family, and we thank them too for all they do. And they're also never going to be forgotten. So thanks to them too. How do you think that we can promote Parkinson's awareness more throughout the world?
Well, for me, it's not. It's more about what each individual patient should be doing. Um, Not everyone can and should do what I've done. Not everyone has the ability to go out and like really advocate for themselves, become a champion of their own disease, and learn so much about their disease. Because like I was still pretty young when I got diagnosed. I had the time and the resources to actually devote myself to this disease. But not everyone can do that. I wouldn't expect everyone to be able to do that, but I would expect everyone to try to some degree um, understand your disease for yourself. There's nobody out there that can understand it for you as well as you can. So don't just like be comfortable with whatever clinical label that they thrust upon you. Whether it's dementia or Alzheimer's or MS or Parkinson's, whatever your disease label is, it's just a clinical label that helps doctors make decisions for themselves. But it doesn't really help you live your life any better. I would say like go out there and try and define this disease for yourself. That'd be one like big takeaway that I could share with all patients around the world. Define this disease for yourself. Don't let anyone else define this for you. Define it for yourself.
Thank you. Here's a fun one. If you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, what would you call it?
Born in Kenya.
Nice.
Yeah, I was born in Kenya.
Uh,
And I've always loved to travel. Travel's always been a passion of mine. Something I've continued to do throughout my adult life. I've lived like I've lived I think in like almost 30 or 40 different countries all around the world. So so yeah, I'd
I
love
don't leave my house much, so now I feel bad. I appreciate it. And then I don't know if there's any areas you wanted to bring up that I might not have covered, but one final question I had is if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be? Also,
all the
yep.
sorry. The the final words of encouragement would be exactly what I just said. To try and define this disease for yourself. Don't be content with what anybody else tells you about what you're going through. Nobody's walking in your shoes. Nobody's doing what you're doing. You don't have Parkinson's. You have something much more specific than just Parkinson's disease. Try if you can to define it for yourself. Um, I had a lot of great mentors that I've relied on along the way that have helped me define it for myself. So I have a much better understanding of what I have and which therapies are best suited to match that particular diagnosis that you come up with yourself. Um, Also, therapies are not just like clinical therapies. There are things like exercise as well. Exercise is so important for helping better manage this disease. I know that these days in particular, I've been going to the gym a lot. I've been going like almost every about 5, 6 days a week to the gym for a new intensive kind of weightlifting program that I've started to do here in Toronto. Um, it's been so beneficial for me that not only in terms of like helping bring down my symptoms of this disease, but in terms of my confidence as well. To help regain my confidence, help me better understand myself and better understand my place in this whole crazy world that we're all trying to make a difference in.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time in this crazy world for me for a short time, and for all those listening. Your time again means so much to me, more than words I can really ever express. I'll be following right by your side along and advocating for all you do. Everyone, please go to TMRWEDITION.com. You can also find more on Benjamin from the Together for Sharon website. Click interviews and you'll read more about Benjamin. I'll add all that to the notes. And please purchase his book, Reprogramming the Brain. And also, since you're already there, the other book as well, because the more we can, Brain Fables, the more we can support Benjamin, the more we'll likely get him to do a few more. So even though he's tired, needs a little quick break, but I know he'll be right out there fighting again. I just had a little message for you, Benjamin, and everyone listening. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Benjamin, will advocate for you, and together our voices, I feel, are so much stronger. And I always say at the end, I'm just getting started, because when we met or when I discovered you, kind of changed my life forever. You motivate me, you inspire me, and I just am so excited again for the future, not just for what you do, but to hopefully working together again for the same goal and to find a cure. So I just again want to really thank you for your time and friendship. It means so much.
Thank you, and I feel exactly the same way. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being a voice for the community, and thank you for shining a light on these projects that you deem worthy. So yeah, all I can say is thank you,
Thanks.
thank you,
No, it
thank you.
means a lot. And thanks everyone too for listening. Please share this. This can't end here. Might have been an important discussion, but one that will live on for many, many, many years to come till we find a cure. I know I'll be sharing it. This is not a show where we just share one, see you later, goodbye. We're going to share it 100 times if I have to, because I want everyone out there again to support everything that Benjamin does in his books. And tell the doctors too, we send our thanks and support for all their work. But anyway, thank you again, everyone. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George. Please stay tuned because there's so much more work to be done till we find a cure. And I won't stop fighting till it's at everybody's doorsteps around the world. So thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Bye, thank you.